Good morning. As a reminder, Jonah's story was not a story of immediate obedience. In chapter 1, God called Jonah to go to Nineveh and preach, but Jonah decided to go in the opposite direction and took a ship away from Nineveh. But rather than strike Jonah down or discard Jonah and move on to someone else, God gave Jonah a second chance. We all hope that there are second chances when we mess up, choose poorly, or just flat out miss the opportunity. However, what does the Bible tell us about second chances? Well, first, you need to know that second chances are not guaranteed. That's true even for believers. There are several examples in the Bible where a person or people fail to obey God and they never get that second chance. In Acts 5, Ananias and Sapphira lied to God and his people about a gift they had brought to the church. Both of them fell dead when confronted with their sin. There was no second chance for them. In 1 Samuel 15, we're told of Saul the king disobeying God, and God took the kingdom away from Saul even after he cried out for mercy. The prophet Samuel's words provide a great warning as to the seriousness of disobeying God and why assuming a second chance might be available could be and may be wrong. He said, "For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he also has rejected you from being king." While we cannot assume God will give us a second chance, if we find ourselves with another opportunity to obey God and to choose wisely, then we should make the most of that chance. The Bible is filled with stories of people who got second chances. In John chapter 17 and 21, we have the story of Peter, that after he denied Jesus 3 times, he was restored to ministry. In John 20, we have the story of Thomas, who was a doubter. And Jesus returned and appeared to Thomas, and he believed. But perhaps my favorite story in the Bible concerning second chances is the story of John Mark. After the Apostle Paul became a Christian, the Holy Spirit called Paul and Barnabas to take the gospel from the church in Antioch to the areas around them. Chapters 12 and 13 were told of a young man who went along with them on their journey called John Mark to assist them. But John Mark left them and headed back to Jerusalem in Acts 13:13. We'll jump ahead into Acts 15. Paul and Barnabas feel the missionary call to go back out, to share the gospel and plant churches. But notice what happens in Acts 15, starting in verse 36. "And after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, 'Let us return and visit the brothers in every city where we proclaim the word of the Lord and see how they are.' Now Barnabas wanted to take with them John called Mark, but Paul thought best not to take with them one who had withdrawn from them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. And there arose a sharp disagreement, so that they separated from each other. Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed to Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and departed, having been commended by the brothers to the grace of the Lord." Mark abandoning Paul had all the appearance of being a catastrophic failure, that it led to Paul and Barnabas separating to keep them from going on a missionary journey together. Of course, Paul takes 3 more journeys that lead to the spread of the gospel throughout Asia Minor. Paul writes what ends up being 13 books of the New Testament, while it seems that Mark is just thrust to the side. But that's not the end of the story. Yes, Mark abandoning the work was a terrible decision, but God was not done with Mark. Barnabas, whose name means encourager, takes Mark with him to do ministry in Cyprus. Mark ends up serving alongside Peter, and it is through this relationship that leads to Mark writing his gospel based on the preaching and teaching he hears from Peter. That's not bad for a quitter who needed a second chance. But even that is not the end of the story. Remember Paul's heart concerning Mark? He felt so strongly that Mark should not go on the trip with him that he set off on his own with this guy named Silas. Eventually, Paul recognized that Mark's failure did not mean the end of ministry for Mark, nor was it the end of their friendship. In 2 Timothy, Paul knows that death awaits him. He is almost certainly about to be martyred for his faith. But while he's still alive, there's work to be done until then. In his letter to Timothy, Paul says in 2 Timothy 4, "Do your best to come to me soon, for Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, and Titus to Dalmatia. Luke alone is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is very useful to me for ministry. The one who had abandoned Paul in ministry is now a trusted co-laborer at the end of Paul's ministry. What an amazing reminder of what God can do with second chances. My friend, if you have failed in the past, don't give up hope. God may yet have great things in store for you. If you fail, confess your failure to the Lord, commit to being an obedient servant to Him, return to your first love, put your hand to the plow again, and serve your Lord wholeheartedly. God is in the business of redeeming our failures and using them to bring glory to Himself. Take hold of that second chance. God bless.